My name is Taylor Grant. I am 25 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by it. Today, I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you love the most. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare. I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end. Because my story will leave you speechless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. It all began when I decided to move into a new apartment after leaving my old place. A decision I thought would bring me more freedom and peace, but instead it dragged me into the darkest chapter of my life. Rent in the city was expensive, and I couldn't afford to live alone, so I searched for a roommate through a popular housing website. That's how I met Vanessa, a girl who seemed so perfect on paper, friendly, polite, well-mannered, and strangely eager to share her space. She was slightly older than me, around 27, with dark hair, sharp eyes, and this almost magnetic presence that drew me in from the very first meeting. I thought I was lucky to have found her so quickly, but little did I know behind her warm smile was a darkness I could never have imagined. The first few weeks went smoothly. She was helpful, always making me coffee in the mornings, leaving little notes on the fridge like, "Have a good day," or "Don't forget your keys." I remember calling my mom and telling her how great it felt to finally have a roommate who wasn't messy or annoying, but someone who actually cared. But soon small odd things began to happen. At first I brushed them off. A shirt of mine went missing from the laundry, my makeup bag was rearranged, and my phone, which I always left charging on my nightstand, ended up in the living room when I swore I hadn't moved it. Vanessa would laugh whenever I asked, insisting I was just forgetful. I wanted to believe her, but the more time passed, the more unsettled I became. One night I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I lived with Vanessa, so it didn't seem like a big deal, but when I turned on the lamp, I swore I saw her silhouette standing in the doorway, just staring at me before quickly shutting the door and walking away. The next morning, she denied it ever happened, joking that I must have had a nightmare. But it didn't feel like a dream, it felt real. After that night, I started locking my bedroom door, yet I would still find signs that someone had been inside. My drawers were slightly open, my journal was moved, and even my laptop showed recent activity. I changed my password 3 times, but somehow Vanessa always seemed to know things she shouldn't, like private conversations I had with friends or little secrets I had never told her. It was as if she was reading my mind, or worse, reading my diary. What scared me even more was how protective she became of me. She didn't like when I went out with friends, always asking where I was going, who I was meeting, and when I'd be back. At first I thought it was just friendly concern, but soon it became obsessive. If I stayed out late, she'd text me over and over again, and once when I came home past midnight, I found her waiting in the dark living room, sitting silently on the couch like she'd been there for hours. Her eyes followed me as I walked past her, and all she said in this low, eerie voice was, "You shouldn't stay out so late, Taylor. It's dangerous." I laughed nervously, but something about the way she said it chilled me to my core. The turning point came one evening when I came back early from work. Vanessa didn't expect me home, and when I entered the apartment, I froze. She was in my room, sitting on my bed, holding my necklace, the one my Dad gave me before he passed away. It wasn't just any necklace. It was the most personal item I owned. When she noticed me, she didn't look guilty. She just smiled, slipped the necklace back into its box, and whispered, "I was just making sure it's safe." That was the moment I realized something was very wrong. I didn't confront her directly because part of me was terrified of what she might do. Instead, I started planning to move out quietly, but before I could, something happened that made me question if I'd even make it out alive. One night as I was brushing my teeth, I heard faint whispers coming from her room. Curiosity got the better of me, so I pressed my ear against the wall, and my blood ran cold. She was talking about me, not on the phone, but as if she were speaking to someone else, maybe herself. She kept repeating my name over and over again, saying things like, "Taylor is mine. She doesn't get to leave. She doesn't get to betray me." I backed away from the wall, heart pounding, and realized I wasn't just living with a controlling roommate. I was living with someone dangerous, someone who had completely lost her grip on reality. That night I lay in bed with my door locked, too afraid to sleep, and just as I was drifting off, I heard something that made my blood freeze, the sound of a key turning slowly in my locked door. Sound of the key turning in my locked door that night sent every nerve in my body into overdrive, and I remember lying frozen under the covers, clutching my phone like it was some kind of weapon, my heart beating so fast I thought it would explode. At first, I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was the pipes creaking or some normal apartment noise. But then I saw the knob move ever so slightly, rattling against the lock as though someone was testing it, and I knew it had to be. Vanessa, I didn't move, I didn't breathe. I just lay there in silence until the noise stopped, and then I heard her. Footsteps retreat slowly down the hall. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with one question: how did she get a key to my room? When I first moved in, the landlord had given us both a copy of the front door key, but my bedroom was mine. I bought my own lock, installed it myself, so how in the world did she manage to open it? Unless she had gone out of her way to make a copy. The idea chilled me to my bones. The next morning when I left my room, Vanessa was in the kitchen making breakfast like nothing happened, humming a song under her breath as if the night before was just a figment of my imagination. She smiled at me, warmly offering me eggs and coffee, but when I looked at her, all I could see was the shadow of her silhouette. In my doorway, my hands trembled so badly I spilled my cup, and she rushed to clean it, her touch lingering on my wrist longer than it should have. I pulled away quickly, and for the first time I saw the flash of something darker in her eyes, something possessive, something not human. That's when I started keeping a journal of everything that was happening, just in case things escalated. Just in case one day no one believed me at first. I thought I could handle it, that I could keep my distance. Quietly plan my exit and get out before she noticed, but Vanessa wasn't stupid. She was watching me, every move I made, every phone call, every time I packed even the smallest bag. She somehow knew. One afternoon I tried to box up a few of my clothes while she was out, but when she came home, the first thing she asked in this strange sing-song voice was, "Are you going somewhere, Taylor?" I first smiled nervously and lied, but deep inside I knew I couldn't keep this up much longer. That night, things took an even darker turn. I was lying in bed trying to force myself to sleep when I heard a scratching sound against my door. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I realized it was deliberate, slow, steady, like fingernails dragging down the wood. My skin prickled with goosebumps as I sat up in bed straining to listen, and then I heard it. A whisper, soft but clear. "You can't leave me, Taylor." I wanted to scream, but fear paralyzed me. The next morning when I confronted her, she laughed like I was insane. She acted confused, denied everything, and even mocked me, asking if I'd been watching too many horror movies. But the thing that unsettled me the most was that later when I went to my room, I found a small piece of paper under my door with 3 words written in red ink: "Don't leave me." My blood ran cold. That was the day I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I contacted a friend of mine, Rachel, who lived across town, and begged her to let me crash at her place until I could find a new apartment. She agreed instantly, but leaving wasn't as simple as I thought because Vanessa had already anticipated it. The night I tried to sneak out with a suitcase, she caught me in the hallway standing there with her arms crossed and this twisted smile on her face. "Going somewhere?" she asked in a low, mocking tone, her eyes fixed on my trembling hands gripping the suitcase handle. I tried to play it off, saying I was just going to visit my mom for a few days, but she stepped closer, so close I could feel her breath against my face, and whispered, "You're lying to me." My stomach churned, and for a split second, I thought she might actually hit me, but instead she stepped back, let me pass, and said nothing else. I rushed out of the building and straight into the street, thinking I was finally free. But when I reached Rachel's place, a new horror began. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I glanced at my phone and saw a text message from an unknown number. It was a photo of me, taken just minutes earlier as I stood in Rachel's apartment window. The caption read, "I told you not to leave." My entire body went numb. Vanessa had followed me. She knew where I was, and she was watching me. The next day, Rachel insisted we go to the police, and though I hesitated at first, I agreed. We explained everything: the stalking, the texts, the attempted break-ins, but without solid proof. The officers brushed it off as a roommate dispute. They suggested I block her number, keep my doors locked, and call them only if she physically harmed me. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare where no one believed me, and just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. A few nights later, Rachel and I were watching TV when suddenly the power went out. The entire apartment plunged into darkness, and my heart instantly knew this wasn't a coincidence. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and we both moved cautiously through the apartment. That's when Rachel screamed. There was a figure standing in the hallway, completely still, watching us. I swung the light toward it, and my blood turned to ice. It was Vanessa. She'd broken in, somehow bypassed the locks, and now stood there smiling at me like this was some kind of twisted reunion. Rachel grabbed a kitchen knife and threatened to call the cops, but Vanessa didn't even flinch. Instead, she looked straight at me and said in the calmest voice imaginable, "Taylor, you can't Hide from me, you belong with me. Then she turned and ran, disappearing into the night before we could stop her. We did call the police that time, and they searched the area but found nothing. They promised to keep an eye out, but I knew better. Vanessa was out there watching, waiting, and she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. For weeks after that, I barely slept, constantly jumping at shadows. Every creak of the floorboards making me panic, and just when I thought maybe she had finally given up, something happened that proved Vanessa was far from finished. One morning, I woke up to find my journal, the one I used to write down every detail about her, lying on the nightstand beside me, only I hadn't left it there. I kept it hidden deep inside my suitcase. When I opened it, my blood went cold. Every page had been crossed out in thick red ink, and on the very last page, written in large, uneven letters, were the words, "You are mine forever." I don't think I've ever known real terror until the morning I found my journal desecrated like that, and the strangest thing was how quiet Rachel's apartment felt afterward, as if the air itself was waiting for the next move, holding its breath just like me. My hands shook as I held those ruined pages, the smell of ink oddly sharp in my nose, and when I showed Rachel her face drained of color, she believed me, now fully, completely, and that should have made me feel safer, but instead it only made the dread heavier. Because if Vanessa had broken into Rachel's locked apartment to leave this, then nowhere was safe anymore. I started living like a ghost, too afraid to leave the apartment alone, barely sleeping, jumping at every knock, every buzz of my phone, certain it was her. Days blurred into nights until one evening I made the mistake of looking at my phone gallery and discovered a dozen new photos I never took. Images of me sleeping, brushing my teeth, even sitting curled on the couch staring at the TV. My blood went ice cold. Vanessa was inside the apartment while I was there, watching me without me even knowing. That night, Rachel insisted we confront the landlord, and when we did, we learned something that made me want to scream. The building had no security cameras, and anyone who had ever rented there could still have a copy of the master key. Suddenly I remembered Vanessa bragging once about how close she was with the super, how she could get into anywhere if she wanted. My stomach churned. Rachel offered to stay up all night with me, knife in hand, but even that wasn't enough because Vanessa wasn't afraid of knives or police or locks. She had crossed into something far darker, a kind of obsession that made her untouchable. 2 nights later, I woke up to the unmistakable sound of breathing in my room. It wasn't Rachel. She was asleep on the couch. This was heavier, closer, and when I opened my eyes, I saw her, Vanessa, sitting at the foot of my bed like she belonged there. Her hair falling over her face, her chest rising and falling slowly as she just watched me. For what felt like eternity, neither of us moved until I finally whispered, my voice breaking, "Please, leave me alone." But she only tilted her head, smiling faintly, and murmured, "You'll see, you'll realize we're meant to be." Before I could scream, she slipped out of the room, like a shadow vanishing into the darkness, leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume that made me want to vomit. When Rachel woke up and I told her, she searched the entire apartment but found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no open windows, no broken locks. It was like Vanessa had melted into thin air. We went to the police again, begged them, cried even, but they still said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest her. They told us to file a restraining order, as if a piece of paper could stop someone who was already inside my bedroom at night. By now I was unraveling. My friends stopped visiting. My job was on the line because I missed so many shifts, and I couldn't look in a mirror without feeling like she was standing right behind me. One night Rachel left for a late shift, and I swore I wasn't going to be paranoid anymore. But as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, I noticed something chilling. My phone's front camera light flicked on for a split second, as if someone had hacked it. Then seconds later, a new notification popped up, an airdrop request. My breath caught in my throat as I read the file name. "Look behind you, JB." My hand trembled as I rejected it, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else, and I forced myself not to turn around, but curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. I twisted in my seat, and there it was. On the far wall, written in red lipstick, were the words, "I love you, Taylor." My legs gave out and I collapsed sobbing because it meant she had been there again, right behind me, close enough to write on the wall while I wasn't looking. Rachel came home to find me shaking uncontrollably, and she tried to scrub the words away, but they wouldn't come off easily. The red smearing like blood across the paint, that was the breaking point. We packed a bag and decided to stay at a hotel, even if just for a night, thinking maybe some distance would help. But that night in the hotel was worse than any before. Around midnight, there was a knock at the door. At first, we thought it was room service or maybe security, but when Rachel peeked through the peephole, her face went white. "It's her," she whispered. Vanessa stood there, In the hallway, her head tilted, a smile playing on her lips, as if this was some kind of romantic gesture. She didn't knock again, she just stood there waiting for nearly an hour until... Finally, she walked away, but the terror didn't stop when we left the hotel the next morning. I found a note tucked under the windshield wiper of Rachel's car. It said, "No matter where you go, I'll always find you." My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore, like my soul was slowly being eaten alive by her presence. That day, Rachel's brother, a cop from another district, suggested we set up cameras of our own hidden ones just to catch her in the act. I agreed, though. I wasn't sure I wanted to see what they might capture. The first night with the cameras rolling, nothing happened. The second night, nothing. But on the third night, when we checked the footage, what we saw made both of us scream. There she was, Vanessa, crawling on all fours across the floor of the living room in the middle of the night, her hair hanging in her face, moving slowly, methodically, like some kind of predator. She crawled right up to the camera, lifted her head, and stared into the lens for a full 5 minutes without blinking, her smile stretching unnaturally wide. Then she whispered something we couldn't make out, but the audio picked up one chilling phrase, "Forever mine." After that, the screen went black, the footage ended. She had found the camera and disabled it, but not before leaving us undeniable proof of her madness. We took the footage to the police, but even then they said they couldn't confirm it was her. Video manipulation, they called it. It was like no matter how much evidence I had, no one wanted to help, and yet I knew this wasn't going to stop until one of us broke completely. Vanessa had pushed me to the edge, and if I didn't do something soon, I was going to lose myself entirely, but I didn't know then just how far she was willing to go or how deep her obsession ran until the night everything finally exploded into horror, beyond anything I could have imagined. I didn't know it then, but the night Vanessa decided to cross her final line was the night I learned what it truly meant to fight back, because up until that point, I had been surviving, hiding, trembling, begging for help that never came. But that night was different. That night she left me no choice but to become the kind of person who could look her monsters straight in the eye and not blink. Rachel had gone to visit her parents for the weekend, promising she'd only be gone 2 days, but I already felt the sickness crawling in my chest when I realized I'd be alone in that apartment. I tried to be strong. I locked every door and every window, I left lights on in every room, and I carried the kitchen knife everywhere. But Vanessa was clever, she was patient, she was obsessed, and obsessed people don't wait forever. Around midnight, I woke up not from a noise but from a feeling, the sense that I wasn't alone, and when I sat up in bed, my heart almost stopped. She was there again, this time standing in the corner of the room, her silhouette black against the light spilling in from the hallway, her head tilted just so, her smile sharp enough to cut. My knife was in my hand, but my fingers were numb and I couldn't move. She stepped closer, whispering my name like a prayer, "Taylor. Taylor?" And I screamed, lunging forward, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed, a hollow, broken sound that chilled me to the marrow, and she said, "If I can't have you, nobody can." Then she pulled something from her pocket, a lighter, and before I could stop her, she flicked it on and held it dangerously close to the curtains. My blood froze. She wasn't just going to terrorize me anymore, she was going to burn the whole place down with me inside. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to die at her hands. I charged at her, knife raised, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Vanessa's smile faltered. She stumbled back, dropping the lighter, and it rolled under the bed. We struggled, screaming, clawing, hitting my knife, flashing in the dim light, until I finally managed to slash across her arm. She howled like a wounded animal, the sound vibrating through my bones, and then she ran bolting through the door and vanishing into the night. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, shaking, the knife slippery in my hand, and when Rachel came home the next day, she found me still sitting there in the corner, eyes wide, unable to speak. But Vanessa wasn't done. A week passed then too, and just when I thought maybe she'd finally disappeared, I got a package on my doorstep with no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, me taken while I was sleeping that very night. She had broken in with the words, "See you soon," scrawled on the back. My scream shattered the air, and Rachel swore she wouldn't let this go on any longer. With her brother's help, we set a trap. We rigged the apartment with hidden cameras. We replaced the locks with motion alarms, and I carried not just a knife but a small can of pepper spray everywhere I went. Days stretched into weeks with nothing, until one night around 3 a.m. the motion alarm blared. Rachel's brother, who had been parked outside in his car, came running, and when we pulled up the camera feed, there she was, Vanessa, crawling again, moving with that same inhuman patience, slipping through the living room toward my bedroom. But this time I was ready. My door was Barricaded and Rachel's brother burst in before she could even touch the knob. What followed was chaos. Vanessa screamed wild and feral fighting, like someone possessed, scratching and biting, but we had her cornered. The police finally came, and when they saw the footage, when they saw the knife she had in her bag, the lighter, the duct tape, the rope, they couldn't call it not enough evidence anymore. Vanessa was arrested that night, kicking and shrieking my name, promising she'd never stop loving me, that she'd come back for me, but I wasn't afraid anymore for the first time. I looked her in the eyes as they dragged her away, and I said, "You'll never own me." She went still, her smile on her face twisted with rage. And I knew that I had finally broken her hold over me. It took months before I could sleep without every creak making me jump. Months before I could walk outside without scanning the shadows, but slowly, piece by piece, I began to feel like myself. Again, Rachel never left my side, and her brother made sure the restraining order was ironclad this time, but more than that, I had finally learned how strong I really was. Vanessa thought she could destroy me with fear, but instead she built something inside me. I didn't know I had the power to fight back, the will to survive, the courage to take my life back. And now, sitting here at 25 years old telling you this story, I want everyone watching to remember this. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't ghosts or demons, they're the people who refuse to let you go, but you don't have to let them win. You can stand up, you can take your power back, because I did, and I'm still here to tell you about it. Thank you for listening to my story. If you stayed till the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real horror revenge stories that will chill you to the bone. Your support means the world to me, and it's the reason I keep telling these stories. Stay safe out there, and never ignore the red flags.